The first time I saw the stolen test papers, they were already in my locker, folded inside a blue envelope with my name written across the front in handwriting that looked just enough like mine to ruin me. I remember the sound before I remember the fear. The metal locker door creaking open, the envelope sliding forward, the sudden silence of the hallway as if every student had been waiting for gravity to confess on my behalf. It was 8:12 on a Wednesday morning, finals week, and I had been 14 minutes early because scholarship girls are never allowed to be late, messy, confused, or human. The deputy principal stood behind me. So did two prefects, three girls from my class, and Vivica Sloan, the richest girl in our year, wearing a pale blue coat over her uniform even though coats were not allowed indoors. She looked shocked when the envelope fell, one hand pressed to her mouth, eyes wide and wet as if she had personally discovered betrayal in the walls. Inside the envelope were the Year 11 mathematics final papers, stolen from the locked exam cabinet before dawn. I said I had never seen them. I said someone planted them. I said to check the cameras. The hallway camera above my locker had been under maintenance. My spare locker key was found in a lost property box with my initials scratched into it. A witness claimed she saw me near the staff corridor at 7:20. By lunch, the school called it premeditated academic theft. By Friday, I was expelled from Harrowmere College with a permanent misconduct note. Vivica became first in the year, won the Hawthorne Scholarship, and cried at assembly about how cheating hurts honest students most. Years later, I died in a public hospital waiting room after collapsing from a double shift, still carrying photocopies of appeals nobody read. The last thing I remembered was the smell of disinfectant, the buzzing light, and the thought that if I had never opened that locker, my life might have survived. Then I woke up at 6:03 on the same Wednesday morning, 5 years earlier, in my narrow bed, with my school blazer hanging from the chair and the locker key cold in my palm. This time, I did not wait for the envelope. I got dressed, walked to school before sunrise, and gave up my locker. My name was Eliana Ward, and in my first life, Locker 214 was treated like a coffin with hinges. Harrowmere assigned lockers by rank and seniority, which was absurd, but private schools can make even storage feel like a social hierarchy. The front corridor lockers, near the glass atrium and staff offices, belonged to students with leadership badges, scholarship finalists, and families who appeared in donor magazines. Locker 214 was mine because I had scored first in mathematics the previous term, 2 marks above Vivica Sloan. That was the beginning of my mistake, thinking the school had rewarded me. The truth was that Harrowmere placed me where I could be watched, measured, and eventually framed neatly. Vivica had locker 213, right beside mine. She always joked that we were academic neighbors, then borrowed my calculator, asked to peek at my notes, complimented my neat labels, and once told me, laughing softly, that my locker smelled like library dust and poverty sweets. I did not understand the warning hidden in that sentence. Rich girls like Vivica did not shout insults. They wrapped them in silk so teachers heard banter, and poor girls heard the blade. Her father owned a chain of private tutoring centers. Her mother sat on the scholarship board. Vivica herself had glossy auburn hair, perfect nails, a voice trained by elocution lessons, and the eerie calm of someone who had never entered a room without knowing who would protect her if she broke something. In my first life, she broke me with a blue envelope and a locker door. In this one, I reached Harrowmere at 6:41 a.m., before the sun cleared the chapel roof, before students flooded the corridors, before anyone expected the scholarship girl to alter the stage. The front gates were open for sports training. The halls smelled of wax and cold air. Mr. Baines, the old caretaker, was unlocking the cleaning cupboard beside the atrium when I found him. "Morning, Miss Ward," he said, surprised. "You're early." I held out my locker key. "I need to surrender locker 214. Mr. Baines blinked, as if I had offered him a live frog. "Surrender it?"
"Yes."
"Officially. This morning. Before homeroom." He scratched his gray beard. "Students don't usually surrender front corridor lockers." I know. In my first life, I would have explained too much, because fear makes honest girls overfill every silence. This time, I had prepared the cleanest excuse available. The latch has been sticking, and my mother asked me not to keep exam materials in a faulty locker. I'd prefer a back corridor locker or no locker until repairs are checked. Mr. Baines frowned. Latch looked fine last week. I smiled. Then the inspection should prove that. That sentence did what I needed, made the locker a maintenance issue, not a personal panic. He took the key reluctantly and opened his maintenance log. You'll need a temporary locker. Could I use one near the art rooms? Those are old. Perfect. He wrote, 647, Student E. Ward reports concern with locker 214 latch. Voluntarily surrenders key pending maintenance check. Temporary locker assigned, 512B. I watched the pen move like it was a magic spell. A record existed now before the trap began. Then I added, can you please tape a maintenance notice on 214 so no one uses it? He looked at me over his glasses. You're very particular for sunrise. Finals week makes people strange. He chuckled, signed the log, and placed a yellow out-of-service strip across locker 214. The sight of that strip nearly made my knees give out. In the first life, the stolen papers had waited inside like a loaded gun. In this one, the gun had a maintenance tag on it. But giving up the locker was only half the plan. If Vivica arrived, saw the locker sealed, and changed direction, she might plant the papers somewhere else. My bag. My desk. My temporary locker. Someone else's locker. A desperate rich girl with stolen exam papers was like a candle in a room full of curtains. It was not enough to move one flame. I had to make sure everyone saw who carried it. So before homeroom, I went to Mrs. Lorne, the librarian, because every school has one adult who understands that records are not boring. They are how ghosts become witnesses. I had learned that too late in my first life. When the disciplinary panel asked why I had no proof the papers were planted, all I could say was that the hallway camera had been off. Mrs. Lorne later told me, quietly, that maintenance cameras near the old archive room sometimes caught reflections from the trophy glass opposite the lockers, but by then footage had been erased after 30 days. I had arrived on day 37. This time, I arrived before 7. Mrs. Lorne was sorting returned textbooks, silver hair pinned high, cardigan button wrong because she always dressed as if the morning had interrupted an argument with time. Eliana, she said. Library opens at 8. I placed a folded note on her desk. I need help before then. Something may happen around locker 214 this morning. I gave it up officially, but I think someone may still try to put something inside or near it. Can you make sure the archive corridor camera is working? Her expression did not change, but her hands stopped moving. Why would someone put something in your locker? Because by 8:12, people may claim I stole test papers. She stared at me. That is a very specific fear. Yes. Do you have evidence? Not yet. I hated those words. They had killed me once. That's why I'm asking for a witness before evidence appears. Mrs. Lorne watched me for a long moment, then stood. Come with me. The archive corridor sat behind a locked glass door beside the trophy wall, close enough to the front lockers that the camera caught a reflection in the polished display case. The angle was strange but useful. You could not read locker numbers clearly, but you could see bodies, hands, movement, and the bright yellow maintenance strip on 214 if someone stood near it. Mrs. Lorne checked the feed from the library computer, adjusted the timestamp, and then did something I did not expect. She called Principal Harrow. Not the deputy principal, not my homeroom teacher, not the student welfare coordinator, who smiled too much. The principal. Ma'am, she said when he answered, I am requesting you review a live camera concern near the front lockers between 7:40 and 8:20. A student has raised a credible pre-incident safeguarding concern. I nearly stopped breathing. Credible. Pre-incident. Safeguarding. Adults have words that can open doors if they choose to use them. Principal Harrow was not a warm man. In my first life, he signed my expulsion with the solemnity of someone stamping a visa. I hated him for years before admitting he had not investigated because the evidence looked convenient, and convenience is the laziest form of certainty. This morning, he arrived at the library office at 7:31 wearing a charcoal suit and an expression carved from suspicion. Miss Ward, he said, Mrs. Lorne tells me you anticipate a serious incident. Yes, sir. You surrendered your locker? At 6:47, logged by Mr. Baines.
Why?
Because if stolen papers appear in it after that time, they were not stored there by me.
His face tightened.
You are alleging someone intends to frame you? No, sir, I said. I am preventing the allegation from meeting my word.
He looked at me differently then. Not kindly. Sharply.
Where will you be? Visible. In the library until homeroom, if permitted. Mrs. Lorne crossed her arms. Permitted. Principal Harrow nodded once. Then we watch. At 7:52, Vivica entered the frame. Even through the grainy camera feed, I knew her immediately. Pale blue coat, auburn hair, the white leather satchel she carried only on exam days. My throat closed around a sound I refused to make. In my first life, she had claimed she arrived at 8:05 with her friends and saw me near the lockers looking pale. The camera showed otherwise. She was alone. Early. Moving quickly. She stopped in front of locker 213 first, her own locker, opened it, took out a folder, then looked left toward mine. The yellow maintenance strip made her pause. That pause was the first crack in her plan. Her head tilted. Her hand rose slowly to touch the strip. Principal Harrow leaned closer to the monitor. Mrs. Lorne said nothing. My pulse hammered so hard I felt sick. Vivica looked around the empty corridor, then took something from her satchel. A blue envelope. My blue envelope. Even on the screen, even through reflection, I recognized the shape that had once ruined me. She tried the handle of locker 214. It did not open. Mr. Baines had disabled the latch from the inside after taping the notice, because he was more thorough than I deserved. Vivica's shoulders stiffened. She tried again. Then, with a controlled little movement, she crouched and attempted to slide the envelope through the bottom vent. It caught. She pulled it back, looked around again. Then she did something worse. She moved toward locker 512.
No.
My heart slammed. She did not know about 512B yet. Instead, she opened locker 213, her own, and placed the blue envelope inside. For 1 second, I did not understand. Then I did. If she could not plant the papers in mine before the staged discovery, she would hide them in hers temporarily, wait for the hallway crowd, then move them into my bag, or under the locker gap, or somewhere close enough to create confusion. She had stolen the test papers, and now they sat inside her locker. Principal Harrow stood. Mrs. Lorne called Deputy Vale. Quietly, Miss Ward, stay here. I did not stay. Not exactly. I remained inside the library office until Principal Harrow reached the corridor, but when Mrs. Lorne went to the door, I followed 3 steps behind because I needed to see the moment with my own eyes. The hallway was beginning to fill. Students arrived in waves, shaking rain from umbrellas, comparing revision notes, laughing too loudly because finals make everyone pretend they are less afraid than they are. Vivica had stepped away from her locker and was now standing beneath the staircase with 2 friends, Lila and Margot, both daughters of families whose names appeared on building plaques. She looked perfectly calm, which almost made me furious. A girl can place stolen test papers in metal and still adjust her ribbon like the morning belongs to her. At 8:06, Deputy Principal Vale arrived from the staff corridor holding a clipboard. In my first life, he arrived at 8:10 to randomly inspect my locker after an anonymous tip. This time, Principal Harrow intercepted him before he reached me. I could not hear the whole exchange, but I saw Vale's face change when Harrow pointed at locker 213 instead of 214. Vivica saw it too. Her smile faltered. Just a tremor. Then she began walking toward them, slow, puzzled, innocent. Is something wrong? She asked sweetly. Principal Harrow turned. Miss Sloane, please open your locker. The hallway froze. Vivica blinked. Mine. Yes. Why? Deputy Vale cleared his throat. Principal. Harrow did not look at him. Now, Miss Sloane. There are moments when power does not disappear, but it hesitates, and in that hesitation, everyone hears the machinery behind it. Vivica's hesitation was tiny. Half a second too long. Lila touched her arm. Margot whispered, What's going on? Students slowed. Phones remained down because nobody yet understood this was history worth recording. Vivica smiled again, but now it was stretched thin. Of course. She opened locker 213 with the neat silver key attached to her monogrammed charm. Inside sat textbooks, a tennis visor, a makeup pouch, and the blue envelope on the middle shelf, placed too deliberately to be accidental. Principal Harrow reached in before she could touch it. Do not move. He removed the envelope and turned it over. My name was written across the front. Eliana Ward. The hallway erupted in whispers. My old body remembered this moment so violently, I nearly staggered. In the first life, that name on that envelope had been a noose. In this one, it was inside Vivica's locker in the principal's hand, while I stood 20 feet away beside the librarian. Principal Harrow opened the envelope. The mathematics final papers slid into view.
Gasps.
Someone said, "No way." Vivica's face drained of color, then filled instantly with tears. I don't know how that got there, she whispered. Her voice was perfect, terrified, fragile,
Familiar.
In the first life, those words had belonged to me, and nobody believed them. Hearing her use them now almost made me laugh, but the sound would have come out wrong. Deputy Vale recovered faster than he should have. It may have been placed there by someone else, he said. We need to avoid assumptions. I looked at him carefully. In my first life, he had not avoided assumptions when the envelope fell from my locker. He had marched me to the office before first period and told me honesty might reduce consequences. Now, with Vivica's family name glowing invisible above her head, he discovered caution. Principal Harrow's eyes flicked toward him. That is why we are checking the footage. Vivica's tears paused. Footage. Mrs. Lorne stepped forward, mild as winter. The archive camera has been recording since before 7. Lila went pale. Margot looked at Vivica. Vivica looked at me for the first time. Her eyes sharpened through the tears. There she was. Not the shocked victim. Not the golden girl. The planner, realizing the room had moved without permission. Eliana, she said softly, why are you here with them? It was brilliant. Shift suspicion. Make my preparedness look like orchestration. In my first life, I would have rushed to defend myself and sounded guilty by volume alone. This time, I said nothing. Principal Harrow answered for me. Miss Ward reported a locker concern before the envelope appeared. Before? Vivica repeated, voice trembling. How would she know? A good question. Dangerous. The hallway leaned toward it. I stepped forward only when Principal Harrow turned slightly, allowing it. Because yesterday you asked whether I still kept spare graph paper in my locker, I said. And last week you told me front corridor cameras were unreliable because yours never caught anything important. Then this morning, my locker key felt warm when I woke up, even though I had left it on my desk. That was enough to be careful. The key detail was not from the first life. It was true in this one. Someone had entered our flat?
No.
Probably not. But my locker key had been in my hand when I woke. Rebirth had brought it there like a warning. I let them think caution came from observation, not death. Principal Harrow ordered everyone to homeroom except the students involved. Nobody obeyed quickly at first. Gossip had roots now. Vivica's tears returned harder. This is insane, she said. Why would I put test papers in my own locker with her name on them? I looked at her. Because mine was out of service. The sentence cut through the hallway cleanly. Mr. Baines, arriving with his maintenance ring, held up his log without being asked. She surrendered 214 at 6:47. Latch disabled. Notice placed. Harrow took the log. Vivica stared at the yellow strip on my old locker as if it had betrayed her personally. That strip was the most beautiful ugly thing I had ever seen. Yellow tape. Black letters. Out of service. A whole future saved by maintenance stationery. Deputy Vale suggested we move to the conference room. Principal Harrow agreed, but this time I was not dragged. This time, I walked beside Mrs. Lorne, my temporary locker key in my blazer pocket, my bag sealed and untouched. Behind us, Vivica walked between Lila and Margot, crying into a tissue. Students watched her with a confused hunger of people seeing a crown slip. Some still looked at me. Of course they did. A girl who predicts a frame looks strange even when she is right. But strange was better than ruined. Strange could graduate. The conference room was colder than memory. Long table, glass walls, framed mission statement, the smell of coffee and old carpet. In my first life, I sat there while Deputy Vale placed the stolen papers in front of me and said, "Eliana, this is your chance to explain." Vivica sat outside then as a distressed witness. Today, Vivica sat across from me with the blue envelope between us. Principal Harrow, Deputy Vale, Mrs. Lorne, Mr. Baines, and Miss Calder from mathematics were present. My mother was called, but not yet arrived. Vivica's parents were called too, which made Deputy Vale check his watch twice. Principal Harrow began with the footage. Mrs. Lorne projected the archive camera feed on the wall. Vivica arriving at 7:52. Vivica touching locker 214. Vivica trying the handle. Vivica pulling the envelope from her satchel. Vivica attempting to slide it through the vent. Vivica placing it in her own locker. The room was silent except for the faint buzz of the projector. Vivica did not cry during the footage. That was how I knew the tears were strategic. Real fear had frozen them. When the clip ended, she said, "It's not what it looks like." Miss Calder inhaled sharply. Mrs. Lorne lifted one eyebrow. Principal Harrow folded his hands. "Then explain what it is." Vivica looked at me, then at Deputy Vale, then at the envelope. "Someone gave it to me."
Who?
Harrow asked. "I don't know." "Why did you try to place it in Miss Ward's locker?" "I wasn't. I was trying to see if her locker was open because I thought maybe someone was framing her." The audacity was so complete that for a moment I could only stare. She had taken the shape of my survival and tried to wear it. Miss Calder spoke before I could. "You believe someone was framing Eliana, so you did not report stolen exam papers to staff? You tried to put the envelope into her locker?" Vivica's mouth trembled. I panicked. Deputy Vale leaned forward. "Students do panic." I looked at him, and maybe my face showed something, because Principal Harrow turned to him with a coldness I had never seen before. "Deputy Vale, your concern for student panic is noted. We will apply it consistently."
Vale flucid. Good.
The door opened then, and my mother arrived in her pharmacy uniform, hair escaping its bun, breathless from rushing across town. In my first life, she entered this room after they had already decided I was guilty, and she looked so frightened by the school's polished certainty that she kept asking me in Arabic under her breath if I had made any mistake at all. I hated her for that before I understood fear speaks the language it was taught. Today, she saw me sitting upright, saw Vivica across the table, saw the envelope not in front of me but between us, and came straight to my side. "Are you okay?" she asked first. My throat tightened. "Yes." She put one hand on my shoulder and looked at Principal Harrow. "What happened?" Mrs. Lorne replayed the footage. My mother watched without blinking. When it ended, she turned to Vivica and said, "You tried to put stolen exams in my daughter's locker before breakfast?" Vivica flinched. Her mouth opened. My mother held up one hand. "Do not cry at me. I work in a pharmacy. I know when bottles are labeled wrong." That line nearly broke the room. Mr. Baines coughed into his fist. Mrs. Lorne looked down at her notes. Even Principal Harrow's mouth twitched before he regained control. Then Vivica's parents arrived, and the air changed the way rooms change when money walks in, expecting doors to widen. Mr. Sloane wore a dark suit and an expression of offended inconvenience. Mrs. Sloane wore cream silk, diamonds small enough to look tasteful, and a smile that did not reach any living part of her face. "Principal Harrow," she said, not looking at me or my mother. "I trust there has been a misunderstanding." My mother's hand tightened on my shoulder. Harrow gestured to the screen. "We are reviewing footage of Vivica with stolen examination materials." Mrs. Sloane's smile thinned. "That is a serious allegation to make against a child." My mother laughed once, quietly. "It was serious when they were meant to be found in my child's locker too." Mrs. Sloane finally looked at her, taking in the uniform, the tired eyes, the hand on my blazer. Dismissal flickered across her face. "We should allow the school to handle this professionally." My mother smiled. "Professionally means with the same rules for your daughter as mine." There was a silence after that, not because the sentence was dramatic but because it was inconveniently correct. Principal Harrow played the footage again. This time, Vivica's parents watched. Her father's face darkened. Her mother remained almost still, but one hand moved to her daughter's chair. Not comfort.
Control.
The footage alone proved enough to stop the immediate frame, but it did not yet explain the theft. The exam papers had been stolen from a locked cabinet in the mathematics office between 6:30 and 7:30. Only staff keys, master keys, and temporary access cards could open that corridor. In my first life, investigators claimed my spare locker key in lost property suggested I had arranged help accessing restricted areas. That never made sense, but it did not need to. Suspicion had momentum. This time, the question turned toward Vivica. How did she get the papers? She insisted again that someone gave them to her anonymously near the chapel. No camera showed such meeting. Mr. Sloan demanded the school check all footage before traumatizing his daughter further. Principal Harrow agreed to check footage, which might have stalled everything if Mrs. Lorne had not quietly placed another printout on the table. The exam cabinet corridor camera registered an access card at 7:16, she said. Temporary card number T09. Deputy Vale frowned. Those are kept in the deputy office. Mrs. Lorne nodded. Signed out yesterday afternoon for student leadership display setup. She turned the sheet around. The signature read, V. Sloan. Vivica's lips parted. That was for the scholarship board display. Which display? Harrow asked. Vivica looked at Deputy Vale. Vale looked away too slowly. My stomach turned. There it was, not just a rich girl but the little adult permissions that made rich girl crimes possible. Deputy Vale had given Vivica access. Maybe innocently. Maybe not. In my first life, he arrived perfectly timed for my locker discovery. I had always wondered why. Now the room wondered too. Principal Harrow asked Deputy Vale to explain. Vale's face reddened. Miss Sloan requested temporary access to set up academic leadership materials near the staff corridor. It's common for senior student leaders. During finals week? Mrs. Lorne asked. I did not anticipate misuse. Vivica seized on that. I didn't misuse it. I used it yesterday, returned it, and someone must have taken it. Mrs. Lorne tapped the printout. The card was used this morning. Mr. Sloan said. Cards can be cloned. Theo might have laughed if he had been there. Adults love high-tech fantasies when low-tech guilt sits beside them. Mrs. Lorne produced another sheet. The card was returned to the deputy office at 7:35. Deputy Vale's assistant logged it. Principal Harrow looked at Vale. Vale looked worse now. I was in a staff briefing. Who returned it? Harrow asked. Vale did not answer quickly enough. Mrs. Lorne did. A student matching Miss Sloane's description. Vivica's mother leaned forward. Matching is not identifying. Correct, Mrs. Lorne said. Which is why the office camera has been preserved. Vivica whispered. Mum. One word.
Small. Frightened.
Not the word of an innocent girl waiting to be cleared. The word of a girl realizing how many surfaces had remembered her. The office camera showed Vivica returning the temporary card at 7:36, wearing the same pale blue coat, holding the same white satchel, looking calm. The mathematics office camera showed her entering the restricted corridor at 7:16. The cabinet camera did not show the cabinet itself, only the door reflection in the trophy glass, but it showed her leaving with a flat blue envelope tucked under her coat. Evidence piled slowly, and with every piece, the room's loyalty rearranged. Deputy Vale stopped defending panic. Mr. Sloan stopped speaking. Mrs. Sloan asked for legal counsel. Vivica sat very still, eyes fixed on the table. Principal Harrow finally said, Miss Sloan, do you wish to revise your account? For one strange moment, I thought she might confess. Not because she was sorry, because the cleanest survival route had changed. But Vivica had been raised to believe consequences were negotiations. She lifted her face, tears returning exactly on cue. I was scared, she whispered. I found out Ileana was planning to cheat, and I wanted to stop her without ruining her life. I took the papers before she could, and I was going to place them where staff would find them before the exam. I know it was wrong, but I was trying to protect the integrity of the school.
I ser det her.
Even trapped, She found a balcony above the mud. A thief recast as martyr. A frame recast as intervention. My mother made a sound like she had bitten through a word. Principal Harrow's expression turned glacial. You stole sealed examination papers to protect integrity. Vivica nodded, crying harder. She told people she deserved first rank more than me. She hated that my family— Stop, I said. It was the first time I raised my voice all morning, and everyone turned. My hands were shaking under the table, but I placed them flat where they could be seen. In the first version of this day, I said, then stopped. Too much. Too impossible. Vivica's eyes sharpened even through tears. My mother looked at me, confused. Principal Harrow waited. I took a breath and reshaped the truth. In the version of this day she planned, that envelope was supposed to fall from locker 214 at 8:12 with my name on it. Deputy Vale would be there because of an anonymous tip. The camera above my locker was under maintenance. My spare key would probably appear somewhere convenient. I would panic. She would cry. By lunch, nobody would ask how a girl with no staff access stole papers from a locked cabinet. The room was silent. I turned to Principal Harrow. I gave up the locker before she could use it. That is all that changed. Vivica whispered. You sound insane. I smiled without warmth.
No.
I sound early. Mrs. Lorne looked like she might frame the sentence. Principal Harrow leaned back slowly. Anonymous tip, he asked. Deputy Vale stiffened. There was a message sent to the discipline office at 7:58. Mrs. Lorne said quietly.
Of course she had checked.
It claimed Miss Ward had exam materials in locker 214. The sender used a temporary student portal account. Principal Harrow looked at Vivica. Created from whose device? Mrs. Lorne glanced at her paper. A device logged into the Sloan home network last night. That was when Vivica's mother closed her eyes. Not in sorrow. In calculation. She understood the battle had shifted from saving Vivica's innocence to limiting institutional damage. We will not continue without representation, she said. Principal Harrow nodded. That is your right. In the meantime, Miss Sloan is suspended from campus, pending investigation. The mathematics exam will be replaced. Deputy Vale, you will surrender your temporary access authorization duties, pending review. Deputy Vale stood so quickly his chair scraped. Principal, now. The room became brutally quiet. In my first life, I was the one told to surrender my student ID, locker key, scholarship badge, and exam timetable. Today, Vivica sat frozen while those words moved toward her.
Suspension.
Investigation. Replacement exam. Access review. She looked at me, then really looked, and for the first time all morning, the mask cracked completely. Not into sadness. Into hatred. You think this makes you better than me? She asked. No, I said. It makes my locker empty. My mother squeezed my shoulder like she approved of that more than any dramatic speech I could have given. By afternoon, the school was a hive kicked open. The mathematics final was postponed, then canceled, then replaced with a new paper written under emergency supervision. Students complained first because teenagers can experience institutional corruption and still be angry about rescheduling. Then the footage rumors spread. Vivica at my locker, Vivica with the blue envelope, Vivica in the restricted corridor, Vivica returning the access card. Harrowmere tried to keep details private, but truth has legs when it escapes through a hallway full of witnesses. Lila and Margot claimed they knew nothing. Maybe they did not. Maybe they knew only enough to stay close to power and far from evidence. Deputy Vale went on administrative leave. The scholarship board delayed decisions. Vivica's name disappeared from the Hawthorne finalist display by Friday. Mine remained, not because the school became brave overnight, but because removing it would have looked like retaliation under too many eyes. My mother took a photo of the display anyway. In case they remember cowardice later, she said. Mrs. Lorne gave me a copy of the maintenance log, the library camera preservation request, and the signed statement confirming I had stayed in the library before homeroom. Keep these, she said. Schools forget selectively. I placed them in a folder labeled Locker 214. That folder felt heavier than any textbook. Vivica did not return to Harrowmere that term. Her family withdrew her before the disciplinary panel finalized findings, using phrases like well-being, hostile environment, and procedural concerns. The official report still recorded unauthorized access, possession of stolen examination materials, attempted placement of those materials in another student's locker, and false reporting through a temporary portal account. Her father threatened legal action. Principal Harrow, perhaps motivated by guilt or self-preservation, preserved every piece of footage before anyone could make it vanish. My expulsion from the first life had been quick because the story was simple. Viveka's fall was slower because power always receives extra rooms to explain itself.
But she fell.
The top rank became recalculated after the replacement exam. I placed first.
Not by 2 marks this time.
By 9. That detail mattered more than I wanted it to. I hated that part of me still wanted numerical proof that I had always belonged. But surviving a frame does not instantly cure the wound that made the frame possible. When the Hawthorne Scholarship was announced, Principal Harrow called my name in assembly. Applause rose cautiously, then warmly. My mother cried in the back row. Mrs. Lorne clapped once, firm and terrifying. Mr. Baines, standing by the door with his maintenance keys, gave me a tiny salute. I nearly laughed on stage. Weeks later, I went back to locker 214. The yellow strip had been removed, the latch repaired. A Year 9 student had been assigned to it and decorated the inside with cat stickers and a magnetic mirror. She looked startled when she found me staring. "Is this your old locker?" she asked. "For a while." "Was it cursed?" I blinked, then laughed. "Something like that." She looked delighted.
"Cool."
I almost told her not to keep anything important there. Then I stopped. That was fear speaking from an old room. The locker was just metal. It had never betrayed me. People had. Systems had. Adults who trusted convenient evidence had. Viveka had. But the locker itself was an object, and objects can be reclaimed when the story changes. "Keep your keys safe," I told her. "And if anything weird appears inside, don't touch it before calling an adult." She nodded solemnly, as if I had handed down ancient wisdom instead of basic survival. Maybe those are the same thing in schools like Harrowmere. My final conversation with Viveka happened months later, outside the scholarship ceremony at the City Hall. I did not expect her there. Her family foundation still sponsored one of the regional awards because money can remain in rooms after shame leaves them. She stood near a marble pillar in a cream dress, hair perfect, no school badge, no blue coat. For a moment, we were 2 girls in formal clothes pretending not to recognize the battlefield. Then she said, "You changed lockers." Not hello. Not congratulations. Just the fact she could not forgive. Yes. Her lips curved faintly. "How did you know?" I could have lied. I could have said I guessed, observed, suspected. All true enough. Instead, I looked at her and said, "Some part of me remembered what you were capable of before you did it." She studied me, unsettled despite herself. "You ruined my life over a scholarship." The old me might have shouted. The second life me had learned that some people call it ruin when their plan stops working. "You stole exam papers over a scholarship," I said. "I surrendered a locker." Her face tightened. "Do you know what my parents did after?" "No, they sent me to a school in Switzerland. No one there knows." She said it like a victory, but her eyes did not. "Then be someone else there," I said. "Someone who can lose without needing a crime scene." For a second, something raw moved across her face. Then it vanished behind polish. "You always did think being poor made you moral."
"No," I said.
Being framed made me careful. The ceremony doors opened. My name was called from inside. I left her by the pillar, standing in a life expensive enough to restart and empty enough to echo. Years later, people would ask why I became so obsessive about procedure. Why I photographed envelopes before opening them. Why I read access logs like novels. Why I never let students be questioned alone once I became a teacher myself. I always gave the simple answer, because evidence matters. The fuller answer is that I once died in a life where evidence was arranged before truth arrived. I learned that innocence is not always enough if guilt has better timing. I learned that giving up something can be more powerful than holding on. A locker, a seat, a role, a reputation, a friendship. Sometimes the trap only works because you insist on keeping the place they assigned you. I gave up locker 214 before Vivica could fill it with stolen test papers, and in doing so I left her carrying the crime in her own hands. That morning saved my scholarship, my future, and something harder to name, my trust in my own instincts. The first life, Eliana opened a locker and found a lie. The second life, Eliana closed that locker before the lie arrived and made the hallway watch the liar searching for somewhere else to put it. On the last day of school, I cleaned out temporary locker 512B near the art rooms. It had a dented door, a stubborn hinge, and a faint smell of clay dust. Nobody envied it. Nobody watched it. I loved it more than any front corridor locker. Inside, I had taped copies of 3 things: the maintenance log, my scholarship letter, and a tiny handwritten note from Mr. Baines that said, "Latch repaired. Student was right to report early." I took everything down, folded the note carefully, and placed it in my folder. Then I stood for a moment in the quiet back hallway while the final bell rang through Harrowmere. Students rushed past the front corridors, slamming lockers, laughing, saying goodbye, making plans. I thought of locker 214, now full of cat stickers and ordinary books. I thought of the blue envelope, sealed in the evidence archive. I thought of Vivica's face when Principal Harrow said, "Open your locker." And I thought of the girl I used to be, the one who believed being early to school meant being safe. I wanted to tell her she was not foolish. She was only standing in the wrong version of the morning. So I opened my notebook and wrote one final line before leaving. When someone builds a trap inside the place you earned, give up the place and keep the proof. Then I walked out of the back corridor into the sunlight, carrying no stolen papers, no false guilt, and no key to a locker that could ever hold my future again.